Hi guys, nice to see you. Today we're going to carry on with a little bit of revision. That was the revision exercise on page 78 of your Platinum textbook. So we're going to carry on with exercise 3, which was about verbs, and then we'll go on to about question 6. Good. The first thing that they wanted you to do was to rewrite these sentences and to underline all the verbs. All right, so here's a clue. Some sentences contain more than one verb. We can have many verbs in a sentence, such as he was running, shouting, jumping, and so on. All right. So if you haven't done this exercise, you can take these down now and press pause and see if you can find all the verbs, and then you can come back to us. All right. Good. They ask you to underline the verbs. If they ever ask you to underline, highlight, put into brackets, do as they say, but always write the label underneath. This is very important to get into good habits. Also, if you are doing many things in a sentence, you're going to get confused. What did I highlight? What did I put brackets around? So just as a habit, always write underneath what it is. So A says, the wind blew ferociously and uprooted many trees. I can see the first verb, blew. It doesn't matter if you don't know what all of the words mean in a sentence. Most of the time, you'll still be able to figure out what parts of speech they're using, even if you don't know the meaning of the word. We have ferociously there. If you don't know what that means, it's almost the same as fierce. There is another verb in that sentence. Did you find it? It's this word here, uprooted. Now, even if you don't know what uprooted means, you can kind of get the sense that in the sentence the wind is doing two things. First of all, it's blowing ferociously, and secondly, it's uprooting. So there's two actions and two verbs in the sentence. The word uprooted, if you listen to it carefully, it gives you a clue. It means that the trees have been pulled up from the roots, and the roots are now exposed. Good. Did you label them underneath? Okay, just do that quickly for me now if you have not. All right, let's look at B. The bacon sizzled in the pan. All right, now sizzled, nice onomatopoeic word, and that is our verb. We can see because the subject of the sentence is the bacon. Can you see how the subject, the wind, and the subject, the bacon, are not people? It doesn't have to be a person to be a subject as long as it's doing an action. So in this sentence, the bacon is sizzling in the pan. Good. Let's look at C. It was his 8th birthday party yesterday. Now, I know some people struggled to figure out which was the verb. Yes, there is a verb in the sentence. In fact, sentences, in order to define them as sentences, must have a verb. So, can you see what it is? Let's have a look. There it is, was. The other day we corrected our work and we said that is a verb. Now you can see that is and was are different tenses of the same word. So there we go. D was, I love school and miss my friends during the holiday. I've certainly been missing you guys during this break. So I can actually spot two verbs in this sentence. Did you manage to find two? If not, have a look and see if you can find the second one. All right, the first one is love. Okay, remember, love as a word could be a number of parts of speeches, but in this sentence, it's the action that I'm doing. What am I doing to school? I'm loving school. There's a second one. Do you see it? Miss. Okay, good. So in summary, verbs. Verbs describe, by the way, you can feel free to write these notes in your book or in your study file. It might help you later on. Verbs describe actions or states. Now that is something that I'd really like you guys to learn this year. Previously, you've learned, when you were younger, you learned a verb is an action word or a doing word. And that's why sometimes you get confused when you see words like is, are, and was. A verb is not just an action, but it can also be a state. In other words, just a way of being or being. So it could be a word like running, walking, but also words like having or being. Good. And again, every sentence must contain a verb. Every sentence, every single sentence, no exception. If it doesn't have these things, it's not a sentence. It's something else. So a sentence must have a subject. That subject can be a person, could be a person's name, or it could be a thing doing the action, but there must be a who or a what doing something. So there's always a subject and there's always a verb. Good, nicely done. Next, we're going to look at prefixes and suffixes. It's on the same page as it's exercise 4, 5, and 6. All right, good. Number 4, they ask us to write 3 words that begin with the prefix circum. So you could have chosen any 3 words. I'm just going to show you an example. First of all, read the question carefully. You'll see the word prefix. We've already learned that a prefix goes. Where does it go? In the beginning or the end? It goes in the beginning. Okay, so there's the prefix circum. They want us to complete the word, so we'll probably have to add a root word after circum. They want you to write them down, and they want you to explain what each word means. Use a dictionary. All right, if you don't have a dictionary like this, it doesn't have to look like this. If you don't have a dictionary that's a book, you can use your phone or a tablet or your computer. You can Google the word. You can go to Oxford, Merriam-Webster. All of the big dictionaries have websites, and they have quite cool features if you want to go and have a look. They can help you a lot when you're working. It doesn't say in the book whether they want you to explain in your own words or whether they want you to just write the dictionary definition. So in this case, you can do either. All right. So I want to give you an example of my own. I went to the dictionary, and again, you know, when you're looking through the dictionary, it's in alphabetical order, and I looked for the prefix circum, CCH, CL. Let's see a little bit further. Okay, there we go. I see circum. If you look in the dictionary, they have the prefixes and their meanings. So if you're ever not sure what a prefix means, you can look it up. Even though it's not a complete word, it's just a group of letters, it still has a meaning and it's still listed in your dictionary. All right, so circum, it's a prefix, it says there, and it means around. It comes from Latin. So I've looked in another dictionary and it said round, so I've written around and round. Good. So here's my example. I chose the word circumnavigate. You could choose one in your head or you can look in the dictionary. If you just move your finger down a little bit after circum, you should see some words that end in circum. I had circumference, circumlocation, circumnavigate is the one I chose. So it says circumnavigate means to go around or to travel around. For example, if I took a sailing boat or yacht and I went all the way around the globe, then I would say, I was able to circumnavigate the globe. So I want you to look. There's circum, the prefix that we need to work with. The meaning is in red. It means around. Good. We have another part of the word. That's the part that I filled in. Navigate. It has its own separate meaning. All right. So the root word navigate means to travel. And that means the whole word circumnavigate means to travel around. So you could have had any words with circum, as long as circum is a prefix which is adding to the meaning of the root. Here are 3 to add to your list if you don't have them. You don't have to look up the definition. It's just nice to have a few more words in your vocabulary. Circumference, you know that's from maths, it's the measurement around. Circumstance, you should know. And here's a new one that you might not know, circumspect. If you need to make a decision and you need to look at it from all angles before coming to a conclusion, then you might use that word. All right, let's look at number 5. The root word port means carry. They want you to add 3 different prefixes to this word and give definitions for your new words. So they're not asking you to make up words, they're asking you to find a word that has port. All right. Take note, they're not asking you to put a suffix, so don't add anything to the end of the word. Stick to what they ask you to do. All right. So they're asking you here to add a prefix. Does a prefix go at the end or the beginning? It goes at the beginning. Good. So there's the word port. Okay. I'm going to label port as my root word. If you're not writing labels, it's not the end of the world, but I think it's a very good habit to get into, even if you're not specifically asked, to start writing the labels. It also helps when you revise, to not just see a word port and it doesn't have any meaning. When you see root word, it will trigger the memory of what we've done. Good. So we want to add something at the beginning, before port. Good. So here is an example. If I add the prefix X, this is my own example. You don't need to have the same example. I get the word export. So X plus port is export. You can look up the meaning in the dictionary. Export means to carry out of the country. All right. Generally, if they ask you for a definition, they want you to use a clear example from the dictionary. All right. So here's, I put it into words. My uncle wanted to export grapes from the Cape. Just a note. In a test or exam, even a homework task, they might ask you to add a prefix to a word to change the meaning. They might ask you to write a definition from the dictionary, or to put the word into a sentence, your own sentence, to display the meaning or to demonstrate the meaning. All right, so I haven't asked you to do the last part, but just be aware that you can be asked to do that. So it's important that you are clear about what the words mean. Good. Now, all right, export, there we go. Suffixes. The next thing, number 6, you're going to add suffixes to the words below. You're going to change them into verbs. So if you have not written these words down, you can write them down now, and we can do the task before we go on. All right, we have idle, length, spark, and sermon. All right, if you come to an exercise like this and you don't know what the word means, please feel free to use a dictionary to check before you start going into detail. Now, before I change these words into verbs by adding something on the end, I need to ask myself what part of speech they are. So what part of speech is idle as it looks now? So let's have a look. An idol is a thing, something you can look up to, or something you can touch, or something you can admire, so it's a noun. Length, if I talk about the length of a ruler, you can see by the article the that length is a noun as well. Let's look at spark. Okay. Now in this case, spark actually could be a verb or a noun, but because they're asking you to change it into a verb, you can assume that the spark is a noun. And sermon, a sermon like a message you might receive in assembly, is also a noun. Now, they're not asking you to identify them, so don't panic if you're asking, Ms. T, I didn't write noun. All right, I'm just demonstrating to you that these words are nouns at the moment, and we're going to change them into verbs. All right, so let's have a look. I've chosen my own suffixes. You could have different suffixes as long as the words make sense, as long as they're spelled correctly, and as long as they are now verbs, then they are correct. All right, so I've done some examples to show you. If you don't have the same examples as me, you can write them down now. They might help you later. All right, idle plus eyes is a new word. It is a verb, idealize. Just take note, if you've looked up a word in the dictionary, or you've randomly Googled or searched on your phone, you might have seen idealize spelled with an I-Z-E at the end. That is American spelling. If you see a word in a book or a textbook spelled with the American spelling, it's not technically incorrect. But South Africa is a country that uses standard British English, so our spelling will always have the S rather than the Z. All right, let's look at the next one, length. There's many things you could add to length. I've chosen to add en as my suffix, and I've come to the word lengthen. I lengthen the piece of string, so yes, it's now a verb. Good. A spark could be something that's flying out of a sparkler or an electrical fault. I've chosen to write sparked to make the word sparked, and I'm actually using the word sparked as a verb. I was actually thinking about this kind of sentence. It sparked off a lovely discussion. Good. A sermon, again, if you wrote sermonize, then hopefully you've used the S rather than the Z to make sermonize. Sermonize, it can mean to make a sermon or to deliver a sermon, so to take a religious text or a message or a moral and then to deliver it to an audience. Or it could mean to deliver an opinionated talk. If you've seen a TED talk or you've seen somebody talking about something, they are preaching or sermonizing, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's scriptural or religious. They're just very opinionated about what they are saying. They have a strong opinion. Good. So here's a summary that you can note down. It's worthwhile to take these notes so you have some easy reference for when you are studying. A prefix is a group of letters with a specific meaning. It can be added to the beginning of a root word. So if you want to highlight some keywords, it always helps. If you need to pause to write down the summary, please feel free. Good, let's look at suffixes. A suffix is a group of letters added to the end of a root word. Adding a suffix can change the tense, the part of speech, or it can create an antonym or opposite. All right, we'll look more at those three changes later on, but if you can write this down and highlight them, think a little bit about it, and you'll see these concepts again later on. Good, great job, you've revised well. Now next time we will correct the punctuation of exercise 7 on page 78, and then we'll try a new punctuation exercise together that I'll give to you. We've taken a while to get through page 78, but that's fine. We're working in a way we're not used to. So I hope you guys are well, and I hope that you do the last exercise